Fact to file, Patrick.
Back to file, yeah. I was pleasantly surprised with what he did last year. I thought he might maybe lack a gear for bumpers to be a top-class bumper horse, but Willie was adamant that he would be, and he was right. Just a dream to share, obviously with his flat pedigree, his flat speed, outspeeded him twice in Leopardstown and then again in Cheltenham. I think we'd have finished closer to him in Cheltenham without the interference we suffered, but I think a dream to share was coming past us anyway. So for me, he's going to be a horse that when he steps up to 2.5, even 3 miles, he's going to improve. And with the size and scope he has, he's a point-to-point winner. The chases will be his game.
More 2.5 mile typed up base at his overall form.
I would have thought he'll improve for stepping up in trip. He settles very well. He's quicker than I thought he was, but I think 2.5 plus will be his job.
Lecky Watson, not an easy horse to get right on occasions last winter.
No, I don't know how. I didn't manage to win a bumper on him. Well, I won one bumper on him, but we lost in the Shorge Room. No, he's a horse with an awful lot of ability, as he showed in Cheltenham when he was 4th. Yeah, look, I suppose we lost the first race, and then we ran a cracker in Leopardstown at Christmas where he was 2nd on the very fast inside track. That's a real speed track, and we just got done for a bit of toe. He ran a cracker then, obviously in Cheltenham. Again, he probably would have finished closer, but the Nichols horse came and wiped us all out between the wings of the last. And then I don't remember riding him in Punchestown, but I think watching it back, it might just be the end of a long season for him. I think he's a horse with a lot more ability than his form figures suggest.
It's for me very, very impressive winning on debut, of course, at Navan back in January. Came up short in 2 decent bumpers, of course, afterwards.
Yeah, won really well in Navan, and it was plenty keen on me that day. And that's why I said to Paul in Cheltenham that he'd probably need to drop him out. And Paul tried the kind of Fernie Hollow route, which worked with I think Fiona and Fernie Hollow and maybe 1 or 2 other horses recently. But I think this year's race was probably hard to come from as far back as he did. But when you see how he raced in Punchestown, you can see why Paul rode him that way. He just got quite keen running down the hill early on in Punchestown. And ran his race in the first mile. So he's a horse with an awful lot of ability. He's not over big, he's not over strong. Hopefully jumps will help him settle. And you often see in hurdle races, they go a stride faster than they do in bumpers, so that'll help him. And if he does settle, I think he's a horse, he should be running those grade 1s later in the season.
Captain Cody, a horse I actually haven't ridden on the track, but he was good when winning at Limerick at Christmas.
Yeah, a horse that surprised us last year. Kept improving. He qualified for those auction races. He was very cheaply bought, very well bought by Harold Kirk. Again, not an overly big horse. You can maybe see why his point-to-point form wasn't anything to write home about. And doesn't show a huge amount on the gallops here at home. But, Jodie Townend got a great tune out of him a few times and ran really well in the big festival bumpers in the spring. So, I think he's a horse. Like I said, I'm not sure. I think hurdles will see him at his best. He'll big enough to jump fences, but to look at him, he looks more of a hurler than a chaser.
Western Diego, of course, won a point-to-point. Very impressive on debut for yourselves. Obviously competing at Cheltenham and in Punchestown, but if any horse looked at a horse to go chasing or hurdling, it's him, I suppose, looking at the size of him.
Yeah, look, he's a typical Westerner. I think Westerners have fabulous side. They've got lots of ability, but they can be difficult. I think in Total Recall and Fernie Hollow and a couple of others. So he's quite keen. He wears a hood. He was keen with me when he won Nace, and then he was doing too much in Rachel Blackmore's hands, probably from the top of the hill to the home bend. He just took her into the race earlier than she wanted, but that's his Achilles heel. He can race a bit enthusiastically, but again, with these horses, when they go jumping, they get a jump in front of them, it just puts them back in their hocks and can settle better. So again, I think he's a horse that'll do hurdles, but like you say, fences will probably see him at his best. Being a Westerner, I do think he's probably a horse that wants further. It's how well he's going to settle. If he's still running keen, we might have to keep him at 2 miles. If he settles, we can probably step him out and trip. I think if he does settle with jumps, going out and trip will improve him.
Loughglynn?
The opposite than Western Diego. Very relaxed horse, only does enough. Won well in Nace. It was a ding-dong battle between myself and Jamie, and the second horse franked the form. I was a little bit disappointed with him at the end of the season. I think he's better than that. Again, I think he's a 3-mile horse, soft ground, galloping tracks. Again, will jump hurdles, but fences. He's a tall horse, not massively strong, quite slim, but 3-mile heavy ground. stamina. The fact that he's so relaxed would be an asset to him when he steps up in trip.
Chapeau De Soleil had a big reputation going to Fairhouse last December. He finished second.
Yeah, look, for me, probably the biggest disappointment of our bumper crop last year, I won a Scoodle bumper on him in Thurles very easily and very well. And he'd obviously won a point very well. So we went to Fairy House, the Royal Bond meeting, expecting to win. And he's just ran like his tail was on fire and hung badly left all the way. And I haven't been able to ride him, up the home straight. And even coming around the home bend, I thought for 2 or 3 tries you weren't going to take the bend. I don't know why he did that, because he hadn't done his point to point, he hadn't done it in a schooling race, he hadn't done it at home, whatever got into him on the day. Then after that, we weren't really happy with him afterwards. Nothing came to light, but he wasn't pleasing us in his work. He didn't look as well as he could, so we backed off him. We got him to Cheltenham. But look, it was a big ask. And for whatever reason, he didn't train on as we hoped last year. So we've got him back in now. He looks well. Hopefully we can just keep him looking well, keep him strong. And he could be the forgotten horse from the crop. I think he has as much ability as anything else. But he's just going to have to put it together on the track now.
We were here last year, and Fun had recently won a bumper course at Sligo, a little bit off the beaten track, if you like, for winter form, but she franked out with a great win at the Dublin Racing Festival.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, myself and my mother bought the dam, and I got a great kick out of winning on DRF with her. You know, obviously to have, you know, breeding one is good, and we have a couple of brothers and sisters coming along. Although we did lose a Dr. Dino brother, which was unfortunate, but yeah, she won really well in Leopardstown, and she does race a bit keenly. I dropped her out, and then actually turning out of the back in the DRF, I had to get down and bump her along. She relaxed too much. Then when she went to the champion bumper, Darryl felt she just didn't really handle the track on the day, that she was just got a bit unbalanced and found everything happening too much for her. So he looked after her. And then she ran well in Punchestown, but she went down to the start like her tail was on fire at me, and just ran far too keen all through the race, never took a breath, and that told in the last 2 furlongs. So, you know, I think maybe that was just a long season. She won in August, she got a bit of a break. It was an interrupted kind of season, so this time she's had a proper summer holiday. She'll start off with the rest of the winter horses. And again, her pedigree, York Hill, her jumping should be no problem with her. So I'm hoping she'll develop into a Mayor's Novice hurdle horse.
Chosen Witness, massive, big, strong horse, probably the biggest of our bumper crop last year. Won really well with Jody Townend down in Limerick on bottomless ground, and never really rediscovered that form. I think he's probably a horse for really soft ground, and going out and trip. Like, you know, he'll go hurdling, but with his physique, chasing is going to be where he's best at. And but I think really soft ground might be the key to him. Westport Cove, very, very impressive in winning at Fairyhouse on his career debut. Not as good at Cheltenham, but a big task perhaps on that occasion in the champion bumper. Yeah,
a horse with lots of speed. You know, he's a smaller, slighter, faster type. Works really well at home. The occasion just got to him in Cheltenham. He ran his race up the straight the first time. You see that happen with horses there every year. So I just draw a line through that, and we didn't go to Punchestown with him then. He's back in now, and I think he's a horse with an awful lot of ability. Jumping will be no problem to him at all, and you know, I just draw a line through his Cheltenham run. It just the whole occasion got to him. He learned from that improvement.
Ballyburn, he did everything to get himself beaten last time. Keen, did everything wrong really through the race, but he was very, very good and proved he's a big engine when winning well.
Yeah, but both times he ran really keen. He puts his head down on the ground, he just lies on you. But what he is doing is he's breathing while he's doing it. You know, some horses like Westport Cove now would have just ran up the straight in Cheltenham without taking a breath, panicking. Whereas this fella isn't panicking, he's just being a bit ignorant and he's breathing. So you can be that kind of keen and get away with it, which is what he does. Both times he's looked beaten when the race has developed at the 2 marker, and when I've pulled my stick and, you know, used it on him, he's just dropped a gear and turbo's kicked in and flown away. So he has that turn of foot. I'd like to think he's not slow, but I do think 2.5 will be where he could be most effective. But again, he'll have to settle a bit better. But I do think having a jump in front of him, he's won a point, will make him put his head up and come off my hands or Paul's hands, and I think that'll help him settle. So we didn't take on a Dream to Share with him. We took him on with Tullyhill, and maybe in hindsight we might have got that call wrong. I wouldn't have minded. I wouldn't have minded changing it around after the week in Punchestown.
How good is he?
I just think it's hard to know because he's not majorly flashy here, and he doesn't give everything until you really ask him. But what he does when he hits top gear is pretty special.
Aurora Vega.
Yeah, Facia's little sister, small little mare. Didn't show an awful lot for the first while she was here, and she just kept improving. Obviously her first 2 races there was nothing special to beat, but the way she did it was fantastic. And then to go in a listed bumper last time, with 7 or 8 winners in it, she keeps improving, and she's hardy. She's a bit like her mother. She's small. She can be a little bit temperamental. She's not at all like Faciel, who'd be very tall and very a different type altogether. But she's very like Vega. So yeah, I imagine you're looking at all those graded and listed bumpers in the spring. You've got DRF, Aintree, Punchestown, Fairyhouse. Lots of options there for her. So I imagine that's where she's aiming towards.
Mirazur West, very impressed from winning at Naas. He fell in a point prior to that.
Yeah, full brother to Fernie Hollow. Again, a fine, big, strapping horse. Lots of size, lots of scope. Not quite as ignorant as his brother, but he has that streak in him, again, with Westerner. But I think loads of ability. He's still a big baby mentally wise. He'll need to improve that way. But he did everything very easily for Derek in Naas. And yeah, I think he just, it's hard to think that he could be as good as his brother, but he has us all very excited here.
Tullyhill, how's he been since his summer break?
Good, yeah. Again, tall horse, plenty of strength. He does wear a tongue strap. Real travels very strongly. A beautiful ride. You can put him right with your baby finger, put him wherever you want in a race. A great advantage in a horse. But he'll give you everything on the bridle. It's not that he won't find much off the bridle. It's just that if you just squeeze with your heels, he'll give as much as you can. And that's what it looked like when he took on a Dream to Share. It looked like we had a Dream to Share beaten. And Dream to Share pulled out more and showed an extra side to him, but it wasn't that we didn't find anything. It's just that he gives everything on the bridle. So he handles very soft ground, even though he wears a tongue strap. He won in Gorn on bottomless ground, and again, I think he could be one because of how easy he is to ride. He could go 3 miles, but he has the speed for 2.5. But when you have a horse that's very easy to ride like that, it's a great asset over 3.
You mentioned Dream to Share, and you have great experience riding these type of races. How do you rate last year's crop of bumper horses? It's always hard to say how they're going to progress, but in your mind's eye, if you like.
Yeah, I think it was very strong. Like I think a Dream to Share, Dream to Share obviously has a flat pedigree, and I think he was, maybe trained at 2, and that's a big advantage. So the rest of these horses are going to try and catch up to him. You'd like to think he might have less improvement than the rest of them. But I think the likes we have, Ballyburn there, Tullyhill, Fact of File, Mirazur West, that are just below him. I think they could all. I think I'd be very disappointed if they're not all Grade 1 horses by the end of the season. So I think it's well up to standard.
You mentioned Ballyburn first.
Well, that's well, he's probably top of the pile at the moment, but that can all change.